Okay, hey Brian, there's a few things I want to go over with you before your match tonight. I'm going to break out this video into like 5 main sections. Level 1 things, right? Level 1 shenanigans, like your wards, your mindset, things like. Second section is going to be on your first clear. Third section is going to be on like your tempo and how you're overstaying a lot of the times. The fourth part is on defending your camps, and then the last one is on objective setup. Okay, starting off with level 1, you're playing Kindred in this game. Now I notice you go for this level 1 Raptor ward a lot of the times. In general, it should be your mid laner who goes for these wards. And in our games, Henry's usually pretty good about it. And I'll remind Henry to do it as well, okay? So yeah, it should be your mid laner who drops a ward. I know sometimes from what I'm seeing, you drop the ward yourself. It's really important as a jungler for you to have your ward, right? Because after you're full clear, right, you can drop your ward on the enemy raptors again to see the second respawn, right? That's really important. Or, you know, if you're invading, right, that this yellow trinket is super useful. So it's better for you to have and hold your yellow trinket. I don't like how you swapped to a red trinket. I think, yeah, it's because you want to sweep out their potential wards and stuff like that. I still want you to stay on yellow trinket. Usually our support will take red trinket so they can sweep it out for you. Okay, but it's really, really important. I guess the point I'm trying to make is it's really important for you to stay on yellow trinket. Okay, this red trinket doesn't really do much because by the time you sweep it, they're gonna know that you're starting on this half of the map already, right? Based on the timer. Like they already got the most of the information they needed. Okay, this is your solo queue game, right? You're playing Skarner. You drop your word level 1, right? So this is the thing I'm talking about where I just want you to stay on yellow trinket, right? I understand it's solo queue, so this is more okay in solo queue, right? But even in solo queue, I would rather be blind about where the jungler started than use my ward, right? If anyone should ward, it should be your mid laner. Okay, this is a flex game I played with you. So we're level 1 invading. You drop your ward on their red buff, which is not bad. I think the point I'm trying to make here is the Raptor ward is almost always like 95% of the time better than the red buff ward. Why is it better? Well, the main point of the red buff ward is that it tells you if the jungler is starting red or not. And then there's like some exceptions with like Shaco, Graves, or Kindred where you could see if you're being cheesed, right? Like they might do red buff into, you know, jump over the wall and invade your camps and things like that. But I'd say those are the exceptions. Versus the Raptors ward, this gives you more information. So like let's say the enemy jungler shows on Raptors at like 220, right? And they have red buff. That just means they're doing their red quadrant, they're finishing their Raptors, right? But then the Raptor ward allows you to see if they're doing an invade afterwards, right? Or if they're going to continue along onto their blue quadrant camps. All right, so that's more value already. Brian, I don't know if you know this already, but most junglers finish one quadrant by 230. Okay, roughly 230. So like if we have this Raptor ward and the timer is like 235, right? And we still don't see them on Raptors. What does that mean, right? It probably means that they started their blue quadrant and they're actually like cheesing, right? Because if they did their blue quadrant and they're coming down, then we should have seen them around 235 at the Raptor ward. Does that make sense? The other scenario is that they, you know, and they could have intentionally dodged this Raptor ward, but I would say the players at this level don't really think about that. It's more than likely that it's this scenario instead, where they did their blue quadrant and they're either invading you or they're looking for a cheese gang mid before they come back to their red quadrant. Okay, so that's why this Raptor ward is generally almost always better than the red buff ward. Okay, so that's the point I want to make. This is another flex game. Something happens level 1, right? Where, yeah, we're basically committing to try and kill this Darius, right? Basically, we commit super hard topside here, right? What would the enemy response be? The enemy's response is most likely they're gonna walk in and like try and get some maybe 1 or 2 deep wards on your jungle, right? So when we leave and we're resetting and stuff like that, you need to call and you need to calm for vision on the opposite side. And I'm in this game with you, right? So I don't remember hearing you say that. Either your mid laner or your bot lane needs to get some vision for you, right? And it's like this ward I placed for you at 125-ish. And I intentionally placed it here because, well, there's a chance that they could already be starting your blue buff, right? And then, you know, after they take your bot camps, they would exit this way. This ward is okay. I think the Raptors ward is also okay. It just depends on what the enemy jungler does. So yeah, you need a ward probably from your mid laner, right? Either on Raptors or here, something like that. And then your support should also like ideally check your blue, maybe at like 130 when it's spawning, right? Just to, he can poke his head out like here where my mouse is and just check to see if they're actively doing your blue. Okay? The point is you need to raise the concern, right? Because like I'd say a lot of mid laners don't know about this, right? And a lot of people just don't have the presence of mind. They don't really understand how jungle works, and they're not actively thinking about this. So you need to raise the point, right? And this word that I place actually pays off, right? And you'll see in a second here. Like we see the Darius on my ward, right? Which gives you the intel to do whatever, right? You can either defend your camps or you can do the same thing and take his opposite side of camps, right? But like you need to raise the concern at level 1, otherwise we would never have this ward to spot this Darius doing an invade. Does that make sense? Okay, that's it for level 1 for now. The next topic is on your first clear. Okay, so you're doing your red buff. We know the Skarner starting his Raptors, so then that compels you to go take his spot side for free. And this is like the classic cheese strategy for Kindred, for Graves, right? Those kinds of champs. I know a lot of people are doing this with like Raptors as well, right? You take Raptors level 1 and then you go and cheese, right? But a lot of times the enemy team will ward Raptors, so they'll see you doing this. So like with Kindred and Graves where you can actually jump over the wall and stuff like that. Yeah, usually this will work out, but I would say this is fine. This is obviously like a cheese, and I do think this will work in almost all of your games. I'm generally okay with this. What your cheese accomplishes is you're intentionally splitting the map because you take Skarner blue, you take Skarner Gromp, right? And then when the Skarner comes and he checks and realizes his blue and Gromp are gone, he goes to your topside camps, right? And he's going to be playing topside of the map. That is effectively splitting the map, right? Or like, let's say in another world, right, he actually has vision of you going into his blue quadrant, and he does the same thing and he goes into your blue quadrant. That is splitting the map, right? But that is a decision you made because you were the one who instigated this invade. Does that make sense? For our team comp right now, with Euphonia's champ pool, he is generally almost always going to be on weak side. So I would say this kind of invade is more okay. I'm more okay with it when we're on blue side. Okay, but I'm not okay with this invade when you're in Skarner's position, right? If you're doing this invade on Skarner's position and you're intentionally splitting the map and we are weak siding our bot lane, I do not want that, okay? Okay, here you're doing the cheese again. You're starting your Raptors this time because you started Q, and then you invade because we saw the Darius walk into our quadrant, which is fair. I think that's fine. I think there's also a world where you try and defend your camps. It just depends on what you think the situation is, right? Like, 'cause our bot lane does have push, but their conditions aren't great. So, and I don't have push in this matchup, so I think your decision is fine, but just keep that in mind, okay? But anyways, you go for this opposite invade, right? You take all 3 camps because you know you have time to take all 3 camps because the Darius is probably doing the same thing. And then you go for this gank top, but obviously you're looking at this top lane these top lane conditions before you go for this gank. And when I look at this just isn't worth your time. Like my Cassante doesn't have like much CC, right? I think the best case scenario we maybe chunk the Aurora to half, but like you need to ask yourself if that is actually worth it, right? Because there's a chance this Aurora actually chunks you as well. You know what I mean? So in my opinion, this gank is never worth your time. Just go back and clear the rest of your camps. Right? We got like basically no damage on this Aurora. You got some mana off of her, but you lost your conditions, and most importantly, you lost your time, right? While you're going for this play, the Darius is still clearing, right? So he's you wasted your tempo and your time to go for a meaningless gank. Okay? In general, on someone like Kindred, I want you to farm and scale. Okay, this game, you're playing Skarner. It's a solo queue game. You do your typical full clear, top to bot. You do bot grab, and as soon as you're actively hitting this bot grab, we should know that the Pantheon is on top grab, right? Because he's not actively contesting you on this bot grab, generally, right? So you take the bot grab. Yeah, you dropped 1 ward here, which is great. You're thinking about basing. Obviously, yeah, you should drop the second ward, which you do. So you drop all your wards. This is great, right? And then you're looking for a kill mid. It's fine. This does look killable. Okay, it's close. Its shroud is annoying. Okay, but here you should immediately base because you used some time to gank mid, which I think is valid because the Akali was killable, probably, or there's like a very strong chance that the Akali was killable, right? But you used some time. You need to reset and hurry up and make your Krugs, okay? You should not go directly to your Krugs here because you need to be able to defend your upcoming Raptors. Because if the enemy Pantheon, after he took top grab, he saw you gank mid, and while you were ganking mid, he's in base buying his items, right? And he's coming out of base as you're going to Krugs, right? Then he is up a buy and he can actively contest your Raptors, and we do not want that. Does that make sense? So you need to basically like match his buy, you need to match his tempo. You need to get your buy off so that you can more easily defend your Raptor camp. You did get punished it this way, but not in the way that it should be punished, right? So like you went for your Krugs here without buying. For some reason, the Pantheon also was just lurking in here for the past literally like 40 seconds maybe. He's just been lurking in here. You did get punished here, but what should have happened is the Pantheon should be coming out of base right now, right? You do these Krugs no problem. You go to your Raptors because at this point you already committed to at least one more quadrant's worth of clearing, right? So you go to your Raptors and he has what, 2 long swords, and he is going to fight you on your Raptors. And it's going to be hard for you to defend, right? It depends on the mid conditions, right? But we don't want to have to depend on the mid conditions, right? Because that's just flipping the game. Does that make sense? Okay, next topic is on your tempo. If you're up tempo, that means you have a timer. We're going to use that timer to do one thing. Yeah, especially early game, right? One timer literally only means one thing. Okay, you don't have time to do anything else. Okay, so let's dig a little bit deeper into this. Okay, so we see Skarner here, and I think you think there's a strong chance that he goes to his red buff, and you actually do end up being right here. But I would say this is kind of a separate topic, right? There's also a good chance if he's really actively thinking about it, he should be defending his bot side camps. But anyways, so you end up going to his blue quadrant. You take his blue buff. We see him mid, so you know you have time for the Gromp as well, right? So basically, like he used tempo to gank mid. Basically, he ganked mid twice in the last like 30 seconds, right? So he ganked mid twice, right? And you used your tempo advantage to take 2 of his camps, which is great. That's a great outcome for you. That's awesome. But that's all you have time for. Okay? You cannot, I mean, this is honestly okay, right? You could be contested on this crab, but you should never do this drag, right? This is the idea where you had one timer, your one thing was taking his blue and his Gromp. That's all you have time for, right? You do not have time to do this drag unless the enemy team is just turbo bad, okay? You need to go back to your camps because this is just an unnecessary risk. That's the idea, right? Like the Skarner used his tempo to gank mid and burn our mid conditions, right? In general, that should force our mid to go home. And so they should have better conditions for this drag fight, okay? It ends up actually being pretty close, but I'd say this is an unnecessary risk, okay? Especially in an even game, you should not be allowed to take this drag like this, okay? It's much more consistent for you to just go back to your bot camps and clear, okay? Okay, similar concept this game. So you're doing grubs, that's great. So I would say you're already using tempo to do these grubs, which is fine. And then you go for this top gank. Obviously the Yone get the notification that you're doing the grubs, but he's in such a push up position that you can still go for this gank. Anyways, you go for this gank. Awesome. We get the notification of Furies on Drake, right? And that is your use of your tempo. That is all you can do in that one timer. You cannot go, I mean, this is okay, right? Because maybe there's a kill here, right? But you cannot go for these Raptors for sure. Because if the Nefiri is good, they should be actively trying to defend their Raptor camp. Yeah, so like you basically like traded tempo to do grubs when the Nefiri did drag, right? So you're like on even tempo, quote unquote, right? And then you used one more timer to gank top. That's it. You know what I mean? That you used your one timer to do one thing. Now you should go back to your camps or go back in base and do your bot camps or whatever. I don't know how much gold you have, right? But you should never go for this Raptor camp. Okay? This is just too much. Here, there's a little bot fight that happens, right? You kill the Nefiri. That's awesome. We get the Drake. That's awesome. That's it. That's all you have time for. It's also like just looking at our lane states, right? Like our Lucian went home, right? And we don't have prio, right? But that's the idea is basically like, yeah, one timer, one thing, right? You used your timer to kill the Nefiri earlier, and then that gave us the drag. That's it, okay? Go back and do your bot side camps or reset and go open your top side camps. This is bad, right? You burn your flash for nothing. Yeah, similar idea here, right? You're using your tempo, your timer to do Herald, which is great. After the Herald, that's it. right? Okay. Unless there's a lot of people dead, right? If there's like if there's additional reason for you to continue pushing, right? Continue invading and things like that. But right now, like no one on the enemy team is dead. You don't have the information to just continue invading or ganking or whatever, right? So like you, after this round, you should be incentivized to do your camps. Okay? This is the idea, right? This is what you're doing is great, right? If it's basically like you use one timer to do something, and then after you do that one thing, whether it's invade or do an objective or look for a gank, you should be incentivized to farm afterwards. Okay? This is the game where, yeah, you basically over tempo after your first clear. You and Pantheon go 1-for-1 here, which is fine. You come out of base and you start beelining for his raptors. But there's no world where you get these raptors, right? Because you guys died at the same time, so you guys are on the same tempo, right? And if you guys are on the same tempo coming from base at the same time, of course this Pantheon's going to get to his raptors first, right? So there's no world where you ever get these raptors. Does that make sense? So you should just come out of base, just do your camps normally, right? Whether it's Gromp or opening raptors or whatever you want to do, right? But this is a waste of your time. Okay, and then I'd say mid late game, I'm noticing some, maybe it's you being like a little bit greedy, but like I think the perspective on tempo changes a little bit, right? So like mid late game in general, right? You should only be doing like one quadrant. So you do one quadrant of camps and then you look with your support to invade, get vision, set up objectives, whatever, right? On either side of the map or whatever, right? But say mid late game, you don't have time to just continue full clearing, right? It's too slow. The only times you can really full clear mid late game is like if there's nothing else to do, right? Or if you need the gold for an item spike, or like the enemy team is like all dead, right? And like you're just farming basically, right? Yeah, in general, it's really just one quadrant into doing something. Okay? Okay, so here you're coming from base. Let's identify what objective we're playing for, right? So we're in a pretty good spot this game. We're strong enough to contest this Otacon, right? That's the objective we're playing for because there's like nothing else on the map. Your game plan is to clear top to bot. That's good that you end up bot where the objective is, but it's too slow, okay? Because we basically have to wait like I don't know how long this takes, like over 40 seconds. I really don't know how long this takes, but we basically have to wait for you to clear all your camps before we can get vision deep and set up this Otacon. To be honest, it's very unlikely mid-game where you have all your both quadrants up, right? But the enemy jungler is just bad or something. I don't know what he's doing this game. Yeah, you're doing like one quadrant right now. And look at where the waves are, right? Like you're already a little bit late, right? Because like we got the mid push and now your Nautilus wants to set up vision here, right? Basically. But you're not there to support the Nautilus and help him get vision because you're doing your camps. Do you see that? Should have probably just done red buff raptors and then come to help set up vision. You probably don't have time for all three camps, but sometimes you do have time for all three camps. It just depends on the waves and things like that. Okay? But the point is like because you're not here to help get deeper vision, all our Nautilus feels comfortable doing is dropping just one shallow ward. Right? But if you were here on this timer, like I'm saying, we could have a deep ward here, right? Deep ward here, deep ward here, and then we go back to mid wave. Okay? What you did on this timer, this is good. You're doing two camps here. Right? We get mid push. Then you help our Nautilus set up vision here. This is what I'm looking for, right? This is good. This is good what you did. Your Nautilus, I don't know what he's doing. You should be dropping a ward here, like here, right? The point is you were here on time to help our support get vision. That's the most important takeaway. Okay. Okay, kind of last two topics here. So we kind of just talked about this actually, but just the setup for objectives, right? For Drakes, for Grubs, Otacon, yeah, any big objective, right? So I want you to start thinking about this flow, right? So it's 14 minutes. We are setting up the dragon here. All right, we have one word here. We got one word here. Awesome. Okay, but look at the lanes, right? Our Swain is still coming from base, so we need to wait for him. Our Brand can't join just yet, right? He needs to get one more wave and then he can join. We need to be a little bit more patient here, right? We need to help our laners get prio. And I would say like your Brand is already good from this spot. He's just going to one-shot this wave. You don't need to help him anymore. He's safe, right? He's got a ward. He's going to one-shot this wave and then he can move, right? But we need to help our Swain get this next mid wave. That's the issue. We need to protect this Swain here. What the enemy team should be doing is they should not let him get this wave like this easily. Do you know what I mean? And it's because we didn't help this Swain get this wave that the TF has moved first, right? If we were here, you can imagine if we were here helping this Swain get this wave, then how can the TF walk up, right? He would concede push, right? Does that make sense? And that affects the drag setup, right? Because now our mid laner is going to be late. Generally, the sequence is mid wave first, get vision. Then we go back for the next mid wave that's coming, and then we can play the objective. Okay, does that make sense? That sequence, okay? It's very sequential, right? Baby step at a time. We cannot do everything at once. We cannot take vision and get mid wave at the same time. Unless the enemy team is just turbo bad, you know what I mean? Okay, and then the last concept is on just defending your camps. I think generally you, from what I can tell, you do a decent job of defending your camps. There's just a few nuances, a few tweaks I want you to make. Okay, so this is the drag fight that I think, yeah, remember, like, yeah, you overstayed for this one, right? You over-tempoed, right? Because you used your tempo to take his blue, his Gromp, so then we shouldn't do this drag. Oh, that's all the time we had for. You die second, basically, right? The Skarner is going to respawn before you, and you took his blue and his Gromp, and he knows it. So when he respawns, where's he going to go? There's no reason for him to go bot side because he has no bot side camps, right? So he is 100% opening like this, right? And he can take his Raptors, or he could just run straight to your blue buff, right? So what you do when you respawn, you need to defend your blue buff in that scenario. But instead you open to your bot side camps because I think you just think that you have more bot side camps so you want to open to your bot side camps. But this is the wrong way of thinking, right? Like you need to defend your blue buff, or at least you need to think about defending your blue buff, right? Whether you can or not, right? That's another story. Maybe you actually can't defend your blue buff because you don't have all, I don't know. Well, I do think you can defend your blue buff this game, right? But maybe in another world you can't defend your blue buff because our top or mid conditions aren't good, okay? Then you should accept that your blue buff is going to be gone when you commit to your bot side camps like this, right? But I feel like you're not thinking about it because like what I see you do is you take your bot side camps and then it's like you go to your top side camps like you're expecting them to be up. You know what I mean? At least the blue buff for sure shouldn't be up. What you could do in that scenario, right, if you committed to your bot side camps, is you play for the Skarner's respawning bot side as well. And you just accept that you're going to lose your top camps. Okay? Does that make sense? Does that concept make sense? All right, and I'll show Skarner's POV here as well. So this guy's not thinking as well. So he respawns, and obviously he goes and opens like this because he knows he has no bot side camps. He should honestly just beeline straight to your blue buff because his top conditions are good, right? His mid conditions aren't good, but his mid can just base after this wave and TP in to help. Yeah, basically, like, you should have lost your blue buff for sure in this scenario. A little bit later, there's like some fight over this drag. You kill the Skarner. Awesome. We take the drag. Awesome. Normally this is like your one timer, you did this drag. Your one timer, you killed this Skarner, you did this drag, you should be incentivized to do your camps, like we talked about. But you go for this bot dive, which I'm okay with because there's probably a good chance you kill this MF, right? And the karma is 1 HP like you saw, right? So this is fine. There's a high chance, high probability that you guys actually get this kill, right? And I'd say like, yeah, this ends up being a little bit unfortunate, but the point is the Skarner, you killed the Skarner, but the Skarner respawn at this point. So your respawn is going to be delayed, right? He could just, once again, make a beeline straight to your top camps and start taking your top camps or whatever, right? Like your blue buff spawning soon. So what you did when you respawned is you run straight to your top camps, which is good, right? Because we should expect this Skarner to be playing on the top side of the map, right? Because he just made a play on the bot side of the map. When he reopens out on the map, it should be on the top half of the map, right? So you should also be matching that half of the map so that you can, you know, defend your camps or counter gang or whatever. You should not open bot, always open top here. Does that make sense? So what you did this scenario was good. This is what I'm looking for. Okay, that's the same idea. Okay, that's it, Brian. Let's start with that. I'm excited for you to play tonight. So yeah, good luck, have fun. Okay.